Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter, and I have been your beat reporter covering the Jacksonville Jaguars for On SI every single day since August 2019, and we're continuing to march forward through yet another season together. As always, you can find our 100% free, 24/7 boots on the ground content covering the Jacksonville Jaguars when you follow us on social media on Facebook and Twitter at Jaguars on SI. You can also find us at www.si.com/NFL/Jaguars. All right, folks, welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter, and today we are talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars' seemingly never-ending problem against backup quarterbacks. Now, this has been a thing that's gone on for most of the time I've covered the team, but of course, what's happened before 2025 does not matter in the scope of context of this season. Completely new regime, completely new roster, coaching staff, whatever you want to call it. It is a clean slate for the Jaguars, and we will now judge these Jaguars by what they've done. But you got now you got a 9-game sample size on these Jaguars. Now some patterns are starting to emerge about these Jaguars. And one of said patterns is that the Jaguars, even when playing bottom-ranked quarterbacks, have just not made them suffer this year. The Jaguars haven't had a quarterback have a negative overall EPA or an EPA per dropback in a game since Brock Purdy in Week 4, and Brock Purdy had to have 4 turnovers to do that. Jake Browning had to have, I believe, 3 turnovers to do it. And Jake Browning was able to find success against the Jaguars via a long game-winning drive, much like Davis Mills did. So, I think when you look at the context of the quarterbacks the Jaguars have faced, all right, Bryce Young, one of the worst quarterbacks they faced. They played well against him. The defense's second best performance of the season. Jake Browning, obviously they picked him off several times, but they gave up several big plays to him. At the end of the day, he led a long game-winning touchdown drive and put up quite a few points on the Jaguars. CJ Stroud in Week 3. Stroud's obviously, a solid, talented quarterback. I'd say he's a top 16 quarterback in the NFL right now. Texans offense was in a real bad place in Week 3. He really struggled against the Jaguars. That was the defense's best game of the season by far. Week 4 against Brock Purdy, they play a guy who, to show you guys, I'm not just beholden to the order of EPA per play. Brock Purdy has, I think, I put out a chart, good Lord. I put out a chart of every quarterback's EPA per play dating back to 2021, Trevor Lawrence's rookie season. The purpose of it was to look at the context of where Lawrence has been, compared to his quarterback peers in terms of EPA per play, and he's right below average. Stuck out how truly awful Zach Wilson was. But I believe the best quarterback, and if he's not the best, he's like in the top 3 or 4, was Brock Purdy. And to show you guys I'm not beholden to that, I do not believe there's a single universe where Brock Purdy has been amongst the best quarterbacks of the last couple of years. I think, obviously, as you can see from what's happened when Brock Purdy's not in there, that the scheme and Kyle Shanahan do a lot of heavy lifting. Obviously, when they're healthy, they have quite the supporting cast. So, they find some success against Purdy in Week 4, though they do give up a good chunk of explosive plays. Week 5 is when the slide started. I don't think you can say the Jaguars' defense has put in a good game since then. Maybe there were flashes during the Seahawks game, but Week 5, Patrick Mahomes dices them. Week 6, Sam Darnold didn't look as effortless as some of the other games quarterbacks have had against the Jaguars, but Darnold still played well. Matthew Stafford completely dices them. Geno Smith has his probably best game of the season. I know by EPA per play, he was better in week 1 against the Patriots. But he throws 4 touchdowns against the Jaguars after they hadn't scored in like 5 or 6 quarters. And then, of course, Davis Mills. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That same graph I just referenced shows that Davis Mills is one of the worst quarterbacks who has started a significant number of games in the last 5 years. He went supernova against the Jaguars in the fourth quarter. Scored 20 unanswered points against them. It was an absolutely spectacular letdown by the Jaguars defense. And I think it's important to note, I'm not letting the offense off the hook when I say this. The offense doesn't deserve to be off the hook. The offensive line really struggled. Receivers didn't get much separation outside of Parker Washington. The play calling at times left a little to be desired. And then I thought Trevor Lawrence made some really questionable throws. I mean, there was one right after the Davis Mills pick that probably should have been picked. Misses De'Ami Brown on a post and then almost gets picked on the throw. It just, to me, wasn't a clean performance from Lawrence. But I think the story of this game was the Jaguars defense had 3 cracks at getting a single stop against Davis Mills and failed to do so. Just like they failed to get a stop when needed against Jake Browning. And frankly, they very much so failed against Geno Smith. Devon Hamilton makes a great play to knock down that pass. But if he doesn't, the Jaguars lose 31-30 and give up 31 points to the Raiders and lose on the last play of the game because Antonio Johnson was beat. And why this matters, why the Jaguars' complete inability to take advantage of struggling or backup quarterbacks matters. Look at their schedule over the next 8 games. They play a really good quarterback in Justin Herbert. They play a guy who, I'll be honest, I still don't think is a really good quarterback, but I do think he's improved in Daniel Jones. And then otherwise, they play Cam Ward twice. They play Bo Nix. They play Justin Fields. They play Jacoby Brissett. They play a bad group of quarterbacks to close this season. This should be a scenario where the Jaguars are able to have a relatively, outside of 4 games, smooth sailing. Like, yeah, the Colts games will be tough. The Broncos game will be tough because of that defense. The Chargers game will be increasingly tough. But the Jaguars have easy quarterback matchups on their schedule moving forward. And for some reason, there's absolutely zero confidence that they can take advantage of it. And by some reason, I mean, I don't know how they got to this place. Obviously, we know the reason of why you can't trust them. Because when they have faced struggling quarterbacks, other than Bryce Young, they have been repeatedly bested this year. And especially on the best plays of the game. The most important plays of the game. It's a Jaguars defense that has simply just fallen so far. And the shine has come off of so much. And the reason why it hasn't been because of the overall production, which has been bad, or the results, which has been bad. It's who they're coming against. Like, yes, the Jaguars played a 3-game stretch where they played 3 very, very good quarterbacks. Quarterbacks who have played at an elite level this season. Patrick Mahomes, Sam Darnold, and Matthew Stafford. Still can't believe I'm mentioning Sam Darnold in that breath, but it's true for this season. I get it. They struggle against those. First-year coordinator, a lot of moving pieces on defense. I understand. But they can't struggle against the Davis Mills of the world. They can't struggle against the Geno Smiths. They can't struggle against the Jake Brownings. And then suddenly the question arises of why you shouldn't trust them down the stretch in the season. The Jaguars have a very favorable opposing quarterback schedule during this season. But unfortunately, they've given you no reason to trust them. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. Be back next time.